60 Minutes Overtime.
فاحنا خلاص انه جهزنا حالنا وجهزنا معداتنا والدروع، لبسنا دروعنا والخوذه تبعتنا والسياره تبعتنا، الجيب تبعنا موجود عليه الشارات الصحفيه تي في. فرفعت الكاميرا، دخلت زوم على الاخير، طلعت يمين، طلعت شمال، ما شفتش لا دبابات ولا في جيش ولا في يعني معالم انه انا في خطر او في. فبحكي لزميلي يلا توكل على الله عشان نبدا تصوير. لسه نهيت كلامي نزلت علينا قذيفه.
The 15-month-long war that began on October 7th after Hamas attacked Israel has killed more than 300 aid workers and more than 1,000 medical professionals. It has also been especially deadly for the people documenting it. At least 160 journalists, translators, and others who help with news gathering, almost all of them Palestinian, have been killed, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists. It is the deadliest period for reporters since the organization began keeping track in 1992.
So my last assignment.
We spoke with former American diplomat Hala Ritt, who spent nearly 2 decades at the State Department with postings in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. She says Washington has been reluctant to condemn the killing of journalists and that has put America's credibility at stake.
Russia and China have gained so much over the last year. They've gained an intense foothold in the Arab world, and they're extremely popular because they're able to just very easily say, look what the United States is doing. You thought America was the nation of human rights. Look what they're doing. America says they care about the protection of journalists, but look what they're doing. They're enabling the killing of journalists in Gaza, right? So they've been able to point out our double standards in a way that has been devastating to us.
She quit last spring in protest over America's role in the war in Gaza. Before resigning, she was stationed in Dubai, where part of her job was to communicate U.S. policy to the Arab press and monitor media reports about the war. Ritt told 60 Minutes that she included deaths of journalists in reports that she sent to senior leadership in Washington.
You've seen, I'm sure, how many journalists have gotten killed in Gaza. It's been journalists and even their families, and it has appeared to practically be systematic targeting of journalists, right, to silence the truth that's been coming out. And after a series of killings of journalists, I proposed that something comes out from the White House, most particularly Vice President Harris, talking about the importance for the protection of journalists. I was told, no, we can't do that. It's too controversial. I said, what's controversial? Calling for the protection of journalists? This is an American value. I eventually got a statement out of Washington after I pushed so hard.
5 months later, in May, President Biden released his own statement saying that in Gaza, quote, far too many journalists, the vast majority of them Palestinian, have been killed. The Israel Defense Forces deny deliberately targeting journalists, telling 60 Minutes in a statement, quote, the IDF directs its strikes only towards military targets and that terror operatives in Gaza have doubled as journalists. Jody Ginsburg, the head of the Committee to Protect Journalists, has said smearing journalists as criminals is a tactic frequently used by Israel to justify attacks on and discredit Palestinian reporters. CBS News is not able to verify these claims. Israel has prevented international media from entering and working independently in Gaza.
Just Friday, Reuters reported a Palestinian journalist was shot and killed by Israeli forces while covering a scene at a refugee camp in Gaza.